Hello there, my name is Luke Hornby and I'm the proud owner of Hornby Horticulture, and here it is right behind me, the fantastic grounds of our wonderful business. This is not a greenhouse, this is not a gardening centre, it is a horticultural centre. That is important. We sell all manner of horticultural products. We are multifaceted. You can buy here potted plants, you can buy feed, fertilizer, clothing, anything you want that's related to horticulture. If you want it, we've got it. Now, Ronnie, let's talk about him for a bit. He came into my shop quite a lot, and he used to come in quite late at night, which was always a little bit mysterious, but I had no qualms with Ronnie. He used to buy chicken wire a lot. That was one of his favourite products to buy. I wasn't sure why, I never asked. But we used to have a few chats about gardening products and tools. He used to tell me about his wonderful wheelbarrow that he used to own, and he bought another wheelbarrow from us, and I was very happy to facilitate that purchase. Now, it's very sad that Ronnie has passed away. I will be going along to his funeral on Zoom. It is very strange, isn't it, having a funeral on Zoom? It's not quite the real thing, but I hope that we can give him a good send-off. I will be speaking there myself and saying a few words about Ronnie and how much I will miss him and how much I will miss him in the shop, because I love all our customers because they've helped me build my wonderful emporium here. Okay, I will bid you farewell and I will see you at Ronnie's funeral on Zoom. Okay, goodbye.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the virtual funeral of Mr. Ronnie J. Hudson. I didn't know Ronnie personally because he never set foot in this house of God. But I'm sure a lot of his friends and family can paint us a beautiful picture of who he was. Thank you.
No one, not one of you knew Ronnie like I did. Granted, growing up he gave me a few grey hairs. He was a bit gullible as a lad. Someone told him once that you couldn't get a girl pregnant if you did it standing up. That's how we got our Ronnie Jr. and Matthew and Sarah. He was a bit of a slow learner, was Ronnie. He loved cars. When he got his first, he worked so hard on it, doing it up. It's a shame he got done for nicking parts from the scrapyard. Then he ended up rolling it over on a sharp bend with a bunch of mates inside. They pushed it back onto its wheels and carried on like nothing had happened. Ronnie came home very late, and I knew he'd had a crash because of the trail of blood from the back door to the medicine drawer. But he loved me. Treated me like a queen. Always cut me grass of a Sunday and did jobs around the house. When he was out, that was. When he was in, he got one of his mates to do it, like clockwork. You may say he was a rogue and a bad influence, but the lad had no father figure growing up. Not his fault his dad went down for murder. It made him angry, and although I tried, he was hard to keep on the straight and narrow. People have said to me that it must be hard burying your own son. Yes, it's bloody hard. But I expected it in a way. He lived close to the edge, so something was bound to catch up with him eventually. Well, here's to you, son. I hope you're not nicking off guard, and you keep your nose clean up there.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry as you all are that our dear friend Ronnie Hudson has left us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Luke Hornby of Hornby Horticultural Club, based way up in Whitehaven, which is a long way from Ronnie's home, I know. But for those of you who knew Ronnie, knew that he worked away from home a lot. Ronnie was always a quiet man, and it took me a while to get to know him. But as he was one of my best customers, we finally broke the ice and he told me his story. Ronnie enjoyed his job as a landscape gardener. He always bought a new spade when he visited, and I used to joke with him. He must do a lot of digging to get through so many. Ronnie was a private man and didn't like to talk about the work he did. But from his purchases, I could work out he must have worked on great landscaping gardening and man-made lakes from the amount of plastic lining he bought. I remember one of the last times I spoke to Ronnie. He was coming back from a job. Normally, I saw him on his way to work dressed in his usual stained overalls. This time, he was in a t-shirt and shorts. I never realised his legs were so pale. I asked him if he was okay, and he seemed a bit confused that day. I sat him down and we had a real good talk. He told me how he had a calling to do things and wanted to do one last job before he could take on a new role for himself. I didn't know what this job would be, and it's sad he never got to start it. Ronnie said it was all very hush-hush. I tried to talk to him about a new set of hydrangeas and chrysanthemums that had come in and were on offer. But he didn't seem to know anything about the upcoming planting season. I thought that rather odd for a gardener. He said he had to finish one last job and then he would disappear. He bought his final spade and rope and a torch. He wanted to finish this quickly and do overtime to get it done. He shook my hand for the last time and got into his car and drove off. I was surprised when I heard so soon after from the papers that he passed away so suddenly. I'm sure his loved ones were more shocked than I was that he had gone. The more I thought about it, the more I realised I didn't know Ronnie that well. But I just wanted to share with you my thoughts at this sad time.
I don't know why I'm speaking here, as many of you knew Ronnie in a way that I never did. What do I say about the brother? 10 years older than me, bought my first party dress. I didn't ask where the money came from. Well, you wouldn't at 7 years old. All I cared about was that it sparkled. It had fluffy bits and a big twirly skirt like a cupcake. Looks okay, Fan? Fanny Fanakapan, he used to call me. And okay was good. Not boss, but I didn't mind. For once, I was the Disney princess of the party. Ron was my protector. As a scrawny, bespectacled child, I was a bully's nirvana. Paul O'Brien from flat 28 knocked me off my bike once. He regretted that when Ron rounded up 4 mates and racked him, pulling his arms and legs until they dislocated. Didn't question it, me. That sort of stuff just went on our landing. Just daily estate life. Our man was more interested in him not getting his girlfriend Zena knocked up. Dust up among the boys. Not important. She'd say a prayer for them next time she lit a candle. I always thought my brother might be a spy. It was his way with our mum's lemon meringue pie, our rare treat. And typical Ronnie only liked the lemon bit. He would stealth raid the fridge and get the lemon out without disturbing the pastry or meringue. Amazing. We used to say the pie had been Ronnied. Oh, Dad would have given him a belt if he'd have caught him. I want to thank Shona for rescuing my brother at the worst time after his wife chucked him out. And probably for good reason. I didn't ask. But she was never one to hide the bruises under war paint, if you know what I mean. He never touched his kiddies all wrong. And I saw the way he treated them, a bit like me. Nothing was too much trouble for them girls. Ron lived in his car for a good few months, and thank God it was summer. He showered in secret at the Hotel Edgemont, where he looked after the grounds. After watching him emerge with wet hair one too many times, Shona followed him. Back to that steamed up, battered Peugeot, reeking of Mackie D's and Bensons. She invited him home with her. He was good to Shona. By that time, the cancer as we know it now probably stopped him balling a fist, let alone raising an arm. Having brained an old boyfriend myself, he started it. I finished it with a bottle of whiskey in my hand. I realised our family were all a handy bunch, except our Mam. She was a gentle soul. Us kids took after our dad. Feisty, fisty, with a red mist which just used to descend. Once you figure it's in your genes and you've got a battle to make yourself better, normal, does your head in sometimes, them memories of anger, violence and lies. I suppose it's a bit like your average German when them Nuremberg trials happened after the war, except they thought, Jesus, holy Christ, would we really let that happen? The Nazis really killed all them Jewish and gypsy folk. Point of consciousness, they called it, I believe. So you can say that, yeah, I get it, that our Ronnie was one mean bastard. But to me, and I'm sorry if this offends some of you, he will always be my loving brother, who nicked the lemon from our sodding pie, but got me that lavender frou-frou dress to make a scraggy, four-eyed little git feel a bit special. Rest in peace, Ronnie. I will always be your Fran.
Ronnie Hudson was balls deep in my wife Annabelle when we officially met. I had naively entrusted her to hire a labourer to carry out basic jobs around the estate while I was away on business. My son David had overheard Mr. Hudson bragging about his biceps and handyman skills at White Hart and blindly recommended him to my wife. Without so much of a reference changing hands, Annabelle hired him immediately. When I returned after a few months, I checked into a local hotel and began monitoring my new employee from afar. I was shocked to see him struggling with rudimentary tasks, fumbling clumsily with screws and brackets and then mysteriously disappearing for hours on end. Catching the pair in flagrante was a delicious feeling. Annabelle begged for forgiveness. Mr. Hudson's initial look of shock morphed into one of bemused indifference bordering on self-satisfaction. I noticed the wedding ring on his finger. What would his wife say if she discovered his transgressions, I wonder? In exchange for silence, Mr. Hudson would become my serf, and if maintenance wasn't his forte, maybe I could find other uses for this charlatan. Our first job was to dispose of Annabelle. As we buried the body in the desolate wood, now Ronnie broke the silence, rendering me aghast by his temerity. You know I would have shared her with you, Mr. Anderson. At our late-night poker sessions, Ronnie would regale my business associates with anecdotes of his divorced lifestyle, infiltrating cocaine-fueled parties, blacking his way into exclusive clubs, never once taking out his wallet. My relationship with Ronnie blossomed as quickly as one with David soured. He never bought my explanation that Annabelle had just upped and left, and his suspicions grew the more time I spent with Ronnie. As Ronnie divulged more details of his shady past, laundering, forgery, impersonation, fraud, I became utterly consumed. He made it sound not just easy, but exhilarating. I wanted in. His transition from lackey to accomplice was complete as we embarked on a series of increasingly fraught but utterly profitable scams. To capital, when I overheard David talking to Annabelle, I knew instantly who was responsible for creating her doppelganger. And then, when Ronnie disappeared completely, I then knew the game was up, and before long the police arrived at the house. As I was escorted away, I caught sight of David smiling in the window. Several years later, in prison, Ronnie surprised me with a visit. He apologised for fleeing to save his own neck. Could you pull a few strings and get me out of here? I asked. I can try, he said. I'll add it to the bucket list, he said. I looked up for the first time. I saw genuine sadness in his eyes. Weeks, maybe months, he said. Don't worry about it, I said. A month or so later, I was in the mess playing poker with a few inmates when the guard interrupted our game. Anderson, he barked, you're going home.
Ronnie had a thing about sausage. Big, fat liver sausage. I mean, I don't know anyone else who likes it like that. But a big, fat, chubby one. It wasn't even a proper sausage, really. I mean, it doesn't seem to have much to do with liver. But Ronnie loved it. I had to keep it chilled and ready for him. Again, a rice strop if I didn't have it prepared. Was a funny man, was Ronnie Hudson. I don't mean humorous. I don't think I ever saw him laugh about anything. He hated jokes. Get cranky if I cracked a joke. He was always serious with me. Serious about his sausage too. It might have been the dirt and the darkness. The mysteries about his family that stopped him from laughing and kept him a mucky pup. Every Wednesday afternoon at exactly 2:10, Ronnie would turn up, panting for sausage, banging at the door, desperate to get in. He'd stand in the vestibule, drooling whilst I made him remove his boot, hats and coat. It'd be quite dirty at times, but he'd be in, quick as a flash if I let him, muck and all. Precisely 2:50, job done. Ronnie would be back in his boots and coat and out the door, ready to take on the world for another week. Satisfied and full of sausage. The same every week. Our little secret. Squealing for pleasure as I filled him up with sausage. Ronnie loved it. So did I.
All right, look, I'm not one for speeches. And frankly, I never actually met Ronnie in person. Well, not really. I mean, a wave and a smile don't really cover it. But I can't stand here and listen to everyone going about what a terrible bloke he was. Someone's got to say something positive, right? Now, sure, Mr. Hudson had his problems. And I'll admit that my first interactions were not all that positive. If you're going away for weeks at a time, take a minute to have your post held. I mean, trying to shove letters and adverts into that little cubby took me 2 or 3 bloody minutes, which may not sound like a lot to you, but it's a big deal when you've got a route to keep. But that's when I started to realise, if I can't get the letters in, maybe it's all right to have a little bit of a read and see what really matters. And the one thing I'm sure of Ronnie Hudson, or Dark Mysterious Tickler, as Colin Hutchins used to call him in some rather cleverly rhyming verse, he was a very unusual fellow. I mean, it's not your average John who gets catalogues from both the Nature Conservancy and Madame Trudeau's spanking emporium. Sorry. But it's clear he meant a lot of different things to a lot of people. Not least of whom was Her Majesty of Revenue and Customs, who seemed confused as to whether he worked in textile, retail or military exports. In fact, the only thing all of his jobs had in common was the letter X. I still don't know what xenobiology means, but my mum said she thinks it's a code for sex worker. Which makes sense, since it's also got an X in it. Anyway, like I said, I think we should try to say something positive, so it seems to me at least that he was pretty good at what he did, whatever that was, and I'm positive that Mrs. Hutchins, as well as all the other ladies at Northbury Senior Living, are going to miss him very much. Cheers, Ronnie.
My name's Lisa Martinez from New York City. I never knew Ronnie Hudson. So why am I here? Let me tell you a story. Alice was a sweet young girl from Troy, New York State. She worked behind the counter of her parents' diner, DeFazio's, on the corner of 4th and Washington. One dull day in the fall, this guy comes in. He orders cheesecake. Takes one look at Alice and switches on the charm. Yeah, she appreciated the attention. Nice words, compliments. Don't come by often in Troy City. Sure, she didn't know about the lies. He was a smooth talker, sweet as molasses. She didn't take him too serious, but she liked the words dropping from his mouth. Said his name was Hudson. You gotta be kidding, right? New York? Hudson? Ronnie Hudson. Like the river. She looked into his eyes and she saw the gray cold twists. She served him his cheesecake with her heart on the side. It's like she kind of lost herself that day. Jumped off the Hellgate Bridge and drowned in the Hudson. 9 months later, floating down the river in a basket, a baby girl. Me. He was long gone. History. What was he so afraid of? What could a little baby do to him? Bring down his empire? The fall of Troy. Took me a while to find him. Nothing much to go on. Cheesecake and a river. But I found him. And I so wanted to come to this funeral, see the liar for myself. Lying in state. Lying till the end. Did they ever find out the cause of death? I'm curious. You see, I never ever got to speak to the man. But I'm guessing he got my gift all the way from New York City just before he died. He never could resist a slice of cheesecake.
Is it my turn now, please? My name is Sarah Hudson. I was Ronnie's wife. Well, even though he's gone, I suppose I'm still classed as his wife. Although I suppose I'm now his widow. Sorry for babbling. It's just the police only told me yesterday he'd died, and I've never been on Zoom before. You all look surprised he had a wife. Maureen. The grieving parent. Sat there like butter won't melt, was the reason for our little secret. That's right, Maureen. Remember me? Me and Ronnie were childhood sweethearts. I was 16 when I got pregnant. A quick fumble. We had no idea. We were only kids. I was sent to Scotland. And they made me sign the adoption papers. It broke my heart. When I returned, she'd already made Ronnie join the Navy. I needed to get away, so I got a waitress job in Scarborough. I married Bill, but it didn't work. We didn't have any kids. Well, I wouldn't. Not after giving my baby away. And then, 6 years ago, I was in Tesco and I asked this man to pass me the cornflakes because they're on the top shelf. And it was Ronnie. Apparently, he often came to Scarborough on business. So he moved in and we got married. We had cornflakes every morning. It was our little joke. Ronnie worked away a lot, and I missed him, but I was just happy to have him back. We were soulmates, you see. I don't know what I'm going to do without him. I know Ronnie wasn't perfect. The Ronnie some of you talked about was not the Ronnie I knew. My Ronnie made me smile. Made me feel special. Maybe he was a bit of a rogue. A bit of a Tom Pepper, but it was my world. To those of you who said nice things about Ronnie, I say thank you. To those of you who didn't, well, to paraphrase Ronnie, I say up yours.
My name is Diana, and I am Ronnie's daughter. One of his daughters. The last 10 days since he died have been a living nightmare for me, for us, for all of us. The sudden shock of his death was bad enough, but the punch in the guts of finding out that I wasn't his daughter, but one of his daughters, that was awful. But then again, not as bad as Mum and us. Finding out that we were one of his families. One of his families, for fuck's sake. All the time he was home, he was probably thinking about his other family. His other kids, his other wife. Poor Mum. She hasn't slept since all of this started. She just sits there crying. Look at her now. How could he have done that to her? To us? Now, I hate him. I hate him for all the lies that he told us. Telling us we were his world, his reason to live. Well, he is not living now, is he? Bastard. And what about Mum? How is she going to live now? Not just with the heartbreak, but the money. What happens to his pension? As if he's even got one, the lion. Our house is full of them. Everywhere you look is the stuff that he bought, all with a tale to go with it. How he thought of me or Mum or our little Ken when buying it. His twinkling sodden eyes as he hung the family photo frame up in the lounge. His lies are everywhere. And now today I have came to see Ronnie, my dad, in a different light. He was a driven character. He had to be the provider. He was the big man. Not in muscle, but like an anchor. He had to be seen as the one to make things happen. Didn't he just? And now in the light of everything that we've heard today, and probably never will know everything about him, what have we got? Now I have a sister and a big brother, and we will be stronger together than apart. And we will build up our strengths and support each other in our weakness. If he was here, I would just want to say this to Ronnie. I hate you, you lying fucking bastard.
Thanks to Ronnie's family for letting me speak about my old mate. It's a cliche, but it's true. You never get round to telling somebody what you really think about them until it's too late and you find out things about them when they've gone that you never knew. I hope you don't mind, but I've chosen to express my feelings about Ronnie through the medium of hip hop. I don't know much about hip hop, but I do know that Ronnie hated it! Hit the beat. You should have really checked who you were inviting. Because what I know of Ronnie, I think you'll find frightening. If he were the same as Pinocchio, his nose would have stretched to Tokyo. Now Ronnie was a man of mystery, a man with no discernible history. But as Jesus said, the will shall make you free. So let's break out, let's break out, let's break out of penitentiary. We've heard from Ronnie's wife in her widow's weeds, but it seems he couldn't meet all of his needs. Never much at home while he earned his pay. Turns up the bugger was playing away, playing away, playing away. The man lying there had the time of his life, and if you don't believe me, just ask my wife. Thanks you all for hearing my diss track, because it helped me loosen this knife from my back. Good old Ronnie, I thought you were a mucker. But looks like all along you're a lying motherfucker.
I just want to thank everyone for showing up for Uncle Ronnie today. I got something to say.
Cook it up, Cash.
I said Ronnie was a lonely guy. 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 See, I know Ron, a lonely guy, sitting at the end of the bar with lonely eyes. His soul that cries, moans and sighs. He was at the dole at times, on the phone at mine, yet he told them lies. Working on the side, cheating on his wife, burning on his pride, beating on his ride, eating all them pies, scheming on the skies, demon in the skies, reaching for the sides, reading on the guide, creepy in the tide. A man of mystery, no 007, and now we chatting shit while he goes to heaven. And I remember the time back in Devon when he put the knife on me back, but now I'm shedding. I said Ronnie was a lonely guy. 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 See, Uncle Ronnie used to drive an HV lorry, was a bad little toffee and he never said sorry. I remember sitting with the coffee, he was chewing on them cough sweets, said nothing's gonna stop me. But Uncle Ronnie was a loner, he looked like a Simpson, I used to call him Homer. War stories, how he was a soldier, if you needed help you got the cold shoulder. He used to drive the 06 Rover. But I wanna tell you something simple, the man was nimble, he would scrimple. Me auntie found his gimbal and said he was a right up mucker. I just wanna say farewell, motherfucker.